Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning.
Hello.
How are you guys?
Great to be here.
Hello, welcome to Friday.
Okay, now I know we always talk about weather, but just before we start, it's
Jeez.
really warm up here,
not.
and it's supposed to be cold this time of year.
Yeah. But we're in Nashville.
Yeah, it's hot up here right now. I'm sweating. So,
We almost hit a record
really,
the
crazy.
other day, 85 degrees, I think, or something like that.
Oh, wow.
nuts.
Anyway,
Well,
let's not talk about the weather.
yeah, exactly. Maybe I'm sweating because of the topic that we're going to talk about.
That's good.
It's fairly uncomfortable, and I don't like talking about it.
Yeah, I really like getting into these deeper, kind of more challenging conversations because everyone has to do this, what we're going to talk about, especially if you own a business. You're going to find yourself in this space eventually.
Shall we just talk around it and see if people can guess
Yeah,
what
let's
we're
do
talking
that.
about?
Well, here's a statistic that I've heard. I've heard that 50% of this happens to all business owners. And it's the national statistic. Anyways, I don't know. I haven't Googled it. But
Ken, have you done this before?
I have
A lot, or?
not a lot because we like to avoid it at any cost.
I like to hear how you're,
But it is painful.
how you do avoid it.
Yeah. Well, there are certain strategies and tactics.
So what we're talking about is,
Exciting.
yes, we are talking about firing employees, letting people go, downsizing,
When do you know
reducing
you should?
staff. What are some other words?
When do you know you should let somebody go? And it's probably one of the most challenging things that I've had to deal with in business in general. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, it's not fun.
No.
I would say it's not fun. You'd have to be a sadistic person to enjoy firing people. I met a lot of business owners, a lot of people in big corporations that are responsible for a lot of teams that have had to go through layoffs and firing and all that kind of stuff. And it definitely always negatively affects the people involved and the person doing it.
I would have to say that the layoff or furlough or something because of a lack of business is easier than actually having to let somebody go because they're just not able to do their job.
True. Yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, let's unpack this over the next hour. I know there's lots of layers, like an onion to this. I think probably nothing more in a business life has to do with emotions and personality and uncomfortableness and as letting someone go, right? Like day to day, you can just deal with people on a business level. And when it's great, it's great. But when you have to look someone in the eye and say, hey, I'm going to have to let you go and you have to go find a new job, that opens all kinds of stuff, right? So,
well, yeah, I mean, it is, it's hard for that person not to feel embarrassed inside of themselves, right? For it to kind of attack their confidence. And so, and there's really no way to avoid that completely, but there are ways to try and do it in a way that is helping that person as much as possible. And I think that's kind of the strategy, at least the one that we've taken.
Yeah.
That's excellent. That's an excellent point. I want to come back to that. Brad, you're going to say something?
No, I was just saying, with, again, the statistic of 50% of employees don't work out. And so you're going to find that employees are going to come and they're going to go. Sometimes they're going to go on their own fruition. Sometimes you're going to have to walk them out the door. And that's the challenge, right, is to how to know when an employee is no longer really helpful for your business or helpful for you. And that's a tough thing because I think, especially if it's a small business, you become where your employees become like family, and you can even really like a person and like that they're within your business, but they actually don't help your business at all, or they actually may do the opposite. So it's hard to disconnect your emotions and your friendships from the business side of things. And that's really the challenge that I'd like to kind of unpack today, because that's where the challenge happens is I've known so many people that have retained so many employees, and they've been a weight the whole time they've been in business. And there's maybe nothing wrong with that. Maybe that's supportive, but it hasn't helped their business whatsoever. And they've just done it because they felt sorry for the person. So in business, that's a tough thing because we're human and we're emotional beings and we care about people and we understand that that's the core of our business is people and the care. And, when you let somebody go, you can disrupt morale in your company. You can disrupt other employees that really felt like the person was let go inappropriately. They weren't, justified to be let go. And so it can really open up a big problem if you're not careful. And so let's talk about some of those things. And Ken, I'd like to know, for you, I always go to you, what are
make a joke or something?
No, I'm not. What are some of your experiences of letting, you've said you let people go in the past, and I have too. And Bob, I'm sure you have. And,
Yeah.
what are some of the experiences where you've found that, hey, this person just didn't work out?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we mentioned it, or we alluded to it earlier, but you've got to, I don't know who said this, I think, but I've heard it from people locally, hire slow, fire fast. And the hire slow thing is part of it, right? So you want to make sure you bring on the right people and realize that you're bringing on people that are going to be, part of something that even as big as your business might be, those personalities don't matter, and they'll affect things, and truly one bad egg really spoils the bunch in a lot of ways, and so you really have to be, I think, really filtered about who you bring on, their skill set, their character, their fitting into the culture of the company, and all those kind of things. Like that they have to enjoy it. You guys have to like them too, and they have to be really good at what you're bringing them on for. And then, I think on the employee side, just like when us as businesses, it's really important that you add value. Like you've got to add more value than you take. And so, we try and help instill that in people because that's what the business has to do, right? The business has to add more value than it takes. So, there's no magic. I know people out there think that businesses just magically work, but the truth is, they have to add value, and they add value by the people adding value. And if the people don't add value, then the business goes out of business and no one has a job, right? And so there is no, magical way you get paid for not doing something or doing it poorly, unless maybe you do government work. I'm just kidding. Sorry. No, but seriously, there's that has to line up, and I think that's important. So, when we've had to do this, and we don't do this often, but when we've had to fire people, we give them the benefit of the doubt over and over again. It's a long process.
Yeah.
We have things, we've talked about this before, a few things we've instilled in our company, but a culture of being able to talk to anyone about anything. So we encourage people to, I'll say call out other people, but it's not really that way. It's usually more of like, hey, if someone's not meeting expectations, we should have people can talk to each other about it, and they do. And rarely is it intentionally that they're not doing that. But every once in a while you get that. You get someone that's just that doesn't care, or doesn't care enough, or is just not working out, or doesn't have the skills or something like that. And then for those, we take a long time. We have one-on-ones every two weeks with our team. So our team is matched up with a leader. And so it's rare that we don't know about things really, really quickly, and that we're not addressing things pretty quickly, it's like micro adjustments rather than like big problems getting out of hand usually. And I would recommend that for anyone out there, because the regular one-on-ones, you just match them up with a leader, and it just avoids so much. It's just so much easier, micro adjustments versus like someone being way off course and then there being a big issue. You can talk about things that are concerning and all kinds of stuff. But we do those, and so inside of those, we typically are giving feedback, and if things are getting towards the end, it's like, look, this has to change, or this is not going to work out, right? Like that's the only thing. And after a few of those, I would say anytime, as I've grown and had to do this kind of stuff, I would say people know it. People are expecting it.
Yeah.
Because there's no surprise about it usually. I mean, it would be hard. Now, I can't say, I don't know, but like,
unless you were downsizing.
From our side, it'd be very hard to be surprised and let go because you're doing a bad job, because you would have gotten feedback so many times. And now it's definitely possible that people, I'm not saying that happens necessarily all the time, and it's definitely possible that feedback isn't heard.
Yes.
Comes
out of like you're not communicating properly.
I mean,
but
I'm
we try and give the benefit of the
I've
doubt
learned that
over and over again.
I'm kind of a passive aggressive person. And
No.
yeah, it's really hard for people, I think, because what I do is I tend to start to over time.
No, it's easy.
I literally have like these two like angels, or like the devil and the angel on my shoulders, going, but be kind and be nice, and that person can give that person a fourth, fifth, sixth chance because they haven't really lived up to your this heightened expectation. And at the same time, I have this person saying, get rid of them, and so it's like it's hard because I find that sometimes I tend to let things go longer than they should, and hopefully given the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time inside I'm grumbling all the time. And so my attitude probably isn't great. And so some of the things that I've learned is to have these check marks to go, okay, what am I really feeling about this person, and why, and what is the core issue, and can it be resolved? And if it can't, then move swiftly and get it done quickly. Don't fester it to allow that person. If you know, you gotta let them go. If you know, So
say again.
Yeah. So I have kind of a checklist that I've created, and to kind of understand it allows me to not just go with my emotions, but also go with my thinking and going, okay, what's best for the business as well, and without being, a jackass or something like that, where I'm literally being a jerk. I don't want to be a jerk in business. I don't want people to ever see me as a jerk. I can be, but I try to really not be. I try to be kind to people, but sometimes it's a real struggle, and I have let things go on longer than they should have, and I think that's part of the problem. One of the things that you said that really resonated with me, Ken, is this hire slow. What is it?
Hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that what I said didn't contradict that, because I think when something's not right, when you're like, to your point, like you've decided like this is just not right, or something happened, right?
Yeah.
That's a different scenario, right? An event happened where it's just unacceptable. You got to move fast.
Yeah.
But what I was saying is give them coaching, encouragement before that,
Yes.
or correction, before that, before for sure, Yeah.
Bob, I want to hear your opinion on this too, but one of the things that I do is, first of all, I try to figure out what is the core reason that I feel like this person isn't working out, and try to really identify those core reasons, and then see if it can be resolved. And those are meetings, your employee meetings and your reviews, and try to find out if it resolved, but don't give them too much time to resolve it, because if you give them a year or two, you could find that if it takes 2 years to resolve things, and that's just too long. So for me personally, I've kind of gotten to this point now, I'm going to give it 3 to 6 months, and everyone's different. But if I don't see growth, and we may have another discussion or two between there, and I don't see that their desire to grow in that area, or maybe they can't grow, they just don't have the ability, or they're not focused on that growth, they just don't get it, then at that point I need to do something, and I can't let it go on further, because it's not good for anybody. It's not good for me, because I start holding resentment. It's not good for them either, because they may do better someplace else.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'd like to hear a little bit more about your perspective. I know you fired at least a couple thousand people in your life.
No. I hated it, and still do. I've been on both sides of the microphone, I guess you could say, both as an employee and as an employer. And I think the main thing, you touched on a couple of things there. I think we always have to ask ourselves, is this person capable of fixing or changing, right? Like, I think we I have a lot of faith in humanity, and so I always am giving people the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes to a fault. I think we can all do that if we have a little bit of a heart. However, I think too, when you're looking at, should I fire this person? Should I give them another chance? I think you always have to ask the fundamental question: is this person capable of doing what you're expecting of them? Because I think many times we put super high expectations, and a lot of times I know for me, I'm projecting my own standards on that person, and that person may not be capable of it. And I don't mean that in a judgmental, you're not mentally capable of doing something. I mean, you're not wired to do that. It's not in your DNA. You're really good at this, and I'm asking you to do this. Keeping someone in your environment, in your agency, when you know deep down inside that's the case, is really cruel to that person.
Yeah.
And what I've had to deal with in my own life is my own personality flaw of saying, I've let people stay on too long because I didn't like the discomfort of my own emotions versus what was best for them and what was best for the company. So I was prioritizing my own comfort and my own discomfort or whatever it is, rather than saying what is best for that person. And it's masked sometimes. I think we can trick ourselves and say, well, I'm thinking of this person. I don't want to get rid of them. No, you just don't want to deal with the uncomfortableness. And it's actually the most kind thing you can do is let them go. They may not feel like that. But what I've discovered over the years is, without a doubt, no one that I've let go has ended up on the street. None of them have struggled really bad. They've all gone on and got something better. And I just think that's the way things go. It doesn't always work out that way. But if you can just keep that in your head, that when something doesn't work out, you know it's not going to work out. The person needs to be in a different fit. This is going to be really good for them. And by you not doing it and holding it back, you're holding back what's best for that person. And I think if you can really understand that and say, it's not a fit. They need to be somewhere where they fit and they're satisfied. And they may not be happy about it, but in the end, you probably could go back to every person that I've let go, either by necessity or out of my control or downsizing, and they've all said, we're in a much better place now. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. And if you've ever been fired or been let go, you know that's the case. So, just parsing through all that, it's not easy. It's hard. And you can, people can get really upset when you let them go. Have you guys ever faced that? Like someone getting mad at you and like being upset that they let them go? And you brought up the point. It's not a surprise, right?
No, it's usually not. But some people, again, like you try to, maybe I'll get more specific. Like you try not to make it a surprise, right? There's no.
So you're warning them.
There's warnings, there's discussions, there's sometimes explicit, hey, we need to do X, Y, and Z if this is going to work. But, some people don't want, there are personalities that just don't hear that too. Yeah. And so, but there shouldn't, I think your intention should be that it wouldn't be a surprise.
Yeah.
I think what you just said is really, really profound. And I bet at the core of sometimes the issue, which is you can't let your own desire for comfort or your fear of discomfort stop you from doing what is best for everybody. And it's really easy to start rationalizing, no, just a little bit more time, they might get better, whatever. But but really the issue is you.
Yeah.
Right.
And
I don't want to deal with it.
I don't want to deal with it. And you may not even explicitly realize it, but most people probably do. It's like no one likes doing it. So if you can avoid it, you avoid it, right? And so I think that is something you need to be aware of. I've tried to stay aware of that and try to move swiftly when I have to, in that way. And there have been times we've had to move really quickly. There are other times where it's been, a long road of correction, because, we had faith that someone could get it and they just didn't get it over time. And so, I just think that that's an important point to make.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, there's, for me, there's always two core different reasons to fire somebody. One of them is they do a great job at their job. and they make money for the company. They do their job well, but they for some reason they're bucking. They're disruptive to the culture, and so what happens is that it hurts everyone around them. And so, and that's always a challenge because a lot of companies will hold on to people that are very disruptive to their organization, but because they're they work so hard or they make them a lot of money, they keep them on, and then other employees, it can hurt the morale with that. And then another one is maybe they're just not able to do their job. And I have some benchmarks. I'm like, if I can replace an employee who's a pretty, significant role, and within a week to two, I don't feel them being gone, not physically, but the business doesn't feel them. Like our revenues don't drop, nothing's going to drop. If that's the case, then I know they haven't made themselves to be valuable for my business. If in a week they leave and it's like nothing happened, and that role even doesn't need to be fulfilled all that much, maybe we can take it over. Maybe other employees can take it on. Then I know that person probably didn't really need that role, or they just didn't make themselves valuable. And so those are some litmus tests that I kind of do initially, is to kind of weigh it from, kind of take my emotions out of it and go just from a business perspective. Is it good for the business to have this person here? And typically, you would know that for months or whatever, or you've had multiple discussions with the person. And then another thing that I've always struggled with is, when you do let somebody go, do you walk them out the door and get their box and put all their stuff in there? I've always had a challenge with that, because in some bigger corporations, man, you're fired. You're fired. You're like, now? Yeah, like right now, you're going to walk out and the big burly security guy comes in there and starts throwing your stuff in a box. And I think that's hard. I mean, you give your life to the company. And you walk somebody out, but I understand why they do that sometimes, because a lot of employees, as soon as you allude to them that they might
cut that relationship off.
Yeah, you cut that relationship off, and if they have 2 weeks left, at 2 weeks sometimes they're gone. They're not even there, and there's a risk sometimes. Sometimes people flip out. They flip out and they start doing stuff, especially if they have like controls of like social media and stuff.
No, I've heard from so many mentors and people that run really big businesses, really great businesses. We've seen it in our own, like, you fire and it's over there. I mean, you don't give 2 weeks.
Yeah.
There's just so much. Not even if I'm not, the character of people should be enough. I'm not saying vindictive even, but just now this person is on their way out and they're lingering around, and it's not gonna.
Yeah, they have no motivation
anyone
to do the best,
and it's gonna hurt your team.
Yeah, and they feel
uncomfortable
coming into an office after they've literally been let go and they have 2 weeks. So it's really challenging, and it's hard though when you have a small business.
It is weird. It makes for a weird interaction though.
Yeah,
right?
And one of the challenges that I have is that firing people who hold a lot of keys to your business is really difficult, because you can't just walk them out and let them go. Like, you need them to kind of unleash and pass over a lot. If they're very valuable to your company, they're going to hold a lot more keys. And so how do you get them to release those keys? And I think that's one thing you have to prepare for, is like, you have to prepare that somebody can come in early and start to take some of those keys away, so that when they are let go, business can go in as usual, and people are not freaking out going, wait, this person had all the keys and now we don't know what to do, and we're locked out of this, and we don't know how they did this. And to share that shared knowledge.
The other thing is, I think when we think of firing, we think of this really, this massive event that's an instant and then it's over. But it doesn't. Maybe that's letting this kind of thing can be a process, and some people that have like the keys to your business, or have access to things, or have value that has to continue on. You've got to be the person that creates a situation that is a nice transition.
Yeah.
And so, whatever that may be, like, obviously this person just leaving immediately or running out the door or being angry, that kind of stuff is not helpful to anybody, right? And so you've kind of got
screaming on the way out.
Yeah. So you got to kind of figure out for many roles, you have to figure out what a transition looks like that's actually kind of mutually beneficial in a lot of ways.
Yes.
You're right, because
especially if they do hold keys and or were had an essential role. Like, how do you? And that's another podcast. But how do you transition smoothly?
Yeah, especially too if they work with your customers and your customers have a relationship with them, and all of a sudden, like, where's Ken? He's gone. Like, we haven't heard from Ken, and he hasn't been on these conference calls in 2 weeks. Oh, Ken was let go like 2 weeks ago.
He got a better opportunity.
He got a better opportunity 2 weeks ago. Why didn't you tell me? I let somebody go, and I had a client of mine find out like a month later, and he's like, well, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me he was gone? And so you really even have to, it's kind of a weird game. I hate it, but it's like you have to kind of prepare like a month ahead for what's going to happen. You have to even have conversations with your clients before you fire them that, hey, we're going to be letting this person go, and hopefully you have a relationship enough with them, because even your clients can become upset when all of a sudden somebody that was on the kind of the team is no longer there, because they start to value it. Because sometimes a customer can value an employee even though they're not helpful for your business or not the right fit for your business. It can be the client might like that person, and they might like their personality, and so it's really a challenging thing. And I think one of the things that I've learned in the past is that you got to be careful when you're trying to correct people too, because when you're trying to correct an employee over time, they may feel like they're going to get fired, and so as soon as somebody feels like they might be let go, they disconnect. And they start looking, and they start wondering, and now they're unsure. And some people that puts a fire underneath their seat, other people it actually turns them off, and they start to have one foot out.
Yeah.
And what happens is, I guess, is if you do have one foot out, right, as an employee, most likely you're going to get the other foot out too, because the reality is you're not going to. What your employer is trying to do is trying to get you motivated to.
Yeah.
Do you have any stats, Brad? I know maybe you have some of this, but like, is turnover? You mentioned 50% in the agency world. Is it higher, lower, consistent with other businesses? Because so much of what we do involves creativity. It involves maybe programming, maybe so many services that involve technology. So. It's not like, hey, sorry, your production on the production line, you didn't make 50 widgets today. You only made 30, so we're going to have to let you go. That's very concrete, but many times in the agency world, it could be very subjective. Like, I don't particularly like your style of art, or I don't like the way that you make these ads. They're not working. Is that kind of different from your perspective?
Well, I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't have any statistics, but I do know that, in the creative world, there's a lot of one-trick ponies. Like, that's all you do is that. And in a small business, it's tougher because sometimes people have to wear multiple hats. So there is a lot of turnover in our industry. I don't know that it's more or less. I think there's, like any business, I think it's very... volatile based on your clients. So if you lose a client, you lose business. You might have to let people go because of that. I think that that happens in all businesses, but I think it is more volatile in that way. So I don't really have an answer for you, Bob, but next time maybe I can.
I was just curious because I know what we deal with and the employees and what we have to fire for and our environments are unique to our industry, right? It's not like you've got specific measurables all the time. I mean, you should, but many times it's more subjective, right? Like, I really don't like your design aesthetic, or it doesn't really fit with what we're doing, or I don't, like the way that you build these websites. I think we can get someone better. It's sometimes it can be very subjective, and those are many times, and I don't know if you guys experience that, those are the hardest people to let go, because it's not, they're not bothering anyone. Everyone loves them. Right. They fit into the culture. Yeah. They show up to work on time. It's just that they're just not quite making it from, whatever an agency does.
I definitely agree. Those are definitely the harder ones for sure. And really, you kind of have to own some of it, because, if there were, I'm not saying it's easy. Yeah. But if there were the right things in place and the right tests and measures to kind of measure if the skill level is where you need it to be, that would probably would be avoided most of the time.
Unless you're growing and evolving as an agency,
if you're
and
evolving,
they don't evolve in the right
and
way.
that's we've been in those spots, right? In companies that I've been in, happens a lot in like startup world and that kind of thing. And so the companies we're part of sometimes go through those stages where the company has now changed, and it just and it's different. So now certain people, just aren't right for the company anymore, and you do have to go through those times. And those are actually a little bit easier typically, because they're everyone kind of is on the same page, and you can kind of find a mutually beneficial kind of exit plan, I think, for most people. But yeah, it's I would say like having the right checks in front, like kind of avoid a lot of those things.
Yeah, I know we've talked about this on other podcasts, but what I've learned is having good processes so that employees, especially new employees, succeed is really important. Because if you don't have processes in your business where employees know what to do, know how to do it, can have mentors and can grow, then it's really difficult for them to understand what to do to grow. And if you don't have things in place, and oftentimes, I'm checking myself right now, to actually inspire growth and continuing education in your business, where they can learn to grow either if they're creative in their craft, or to grow in business in general, then you're asking them to go off and do that themselves. And you're trying to say, listen, you're not following the rules of the game. And they're like, I don't know what the rules of the game is. How can you expect me to follow rules I don't even know? So if you don't have those processes in place, then and document it so they understand the rules, most people will want to rise to it, will do their best. When it comes to creative, there's certain limitations maybe people have, just, they may not be the hot shot that you thought they were creatively, and they may not be as diverse creatively that you thought they were. And, people get stale, right, in their creativity. They need inspiration. Maybe you need to think about how to add that inspiration into your business, how to give people the ability to go off and get inspired and come back. And
I would make sure. I would make sure that what we try and do is, there are certain types of roles that it's really clear what they do, right? Web developer, or designer, or these sort of like skilled roles. And then there are roles that are a little bit more ambiguous, maybe even in the marketing category or the project management, administrative, that kind of thing. And so I would say, like, when I'm going through this right now with somebody, we work really hard to try and be as specific as possible with that person coming in. Like, here's exactly, like, not title means nothing really, like, when as far as a descriptor, like, it's really not helpful from like a job description thing. Even job descriptions don't really help. So when someone's coming in, like, letting them know exactly what their role is going to be, and it forces you to actually think through what is it that they're going to be doing every week? What are they responsible for? What are the measures of success? And that's not often defined, and so it kind of forces you to do that. And then the more you can give that to someone else, that kind of sets things up a little bit for success. I know we're not talking about hiring right now, but that
retention,
doing that kind of helps you avoid things, because if someone's in and you, to your point, you said they may not know the rules. That's kind of like our fault,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the things that I've read recently, and there's some studies in Europe that they've done this, when you give an employee or a team the ability to craft their responsibilities and jobs, they end up being much happier, and their sense of accomplishment. So what does that mean? What do I mean by that? It means when you hire someone and you come in, it's real easy to give them, here's the job descriptions. And when you fire them, you go, hey, these are the job descriptions. You need to fill it, right? Rather, maybe you say, here's the bullet points of what I want to achieve. Mm-hmm. How would you do that? You come back to me with the job description that you feel comfortable with and fulfill. Then you have that. And one, they've adjusted what they're really good at. And you can say, yeah, this could work. Right. And if they don't fulfill it, you can pull it back out and say, hey, this is what you gave me that you said you could do. and this isn't working out. So then it begins to shift the responsibility.
There's ownership in it.
Yeah, there's ownership. And I think the studies have proven that when you give employees the freedom to do that in a kind of a little more pliable environment versus, this is what I need, do it, you don't do it, you're fired, versus here's what I want to accomplish. You come back to me and tell me how you're going to do that. And if that means that you come in at noon every day and you go home at 7, but you can work better and fulfill it, or you would rather do it on this type of computer. If it works, then the onus is on them to fulfill it. And it also, I think, could potentially lead to a much more pleasant work environment. And I realize that doesn't work for everybody. However, I think on the front end, if we would think about some of those things.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. One of the things too that I personally deal with is, going back to this passive aggressive ness that I tend to struggle with, is that I'm kind of a critical person, and I just call things out, and at least I feel that way. And one of the things that I know,
that's accurate. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
I honestly,
I'm sarcastic. I'm sarcastic.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that?
Well, I know you are, and we talked about that before because I actually we've had a conversation before offline about that, and I'm like, how do you get people motivated? He's like, I use sarcasm, and so I'm like, I gotta maybe use that one. But the reality is that
I think you're more negative and critical in my head.
In my head,
I don't
than I am.
see you as a negative critical person.
I do feel that way because I'm an observer, so I see things and I see the negative things, and I don't dwell on negative things. I'm a pretty optimistic person. Like, I'm always hopeful, and but I do see that, and I want to correct it. And I one thing that I know that I need to be careful about is don't become critical. If you start feeling that you're critical around an employee, you should double check yourself. You should check yourself. You should say, why am I critical? Is it a personality issue, or am I not happy with their performance? And if you're not happy with their performance, then you need to address it, because I think we can go around and be critical, and you can start to, I'm not dissing on you because I think we all do it, but this idea of being sarcastic.
Absolutely.
Sometimes that people can handle sarcasm, and other times people are very sensitive.
I was joking when I said that.
I know that. But no, people
There's a tear in his eye.
People are, I'm learning, I never knew this, but people, did you guys know people are sensitive? That people actually have emotions. And so what happens is I feel like I can sit there and start getting a little bit critical, using sarcasm, starting to almost write the person off. Like, they're not going to get there. They're not going to do that. And so now I start to feel differently about a person. Like, they're, I almost defeat them before I even give them a chance in my brain. And I think that's part of the issue that I personally deal with. And
the one I deal with is cynicism, and it's a little bit different than sarcasm.
Maybe that's what it
being
is.
Critical. It's more of, I can flippantly be judgmental. That in my mind, I think might be coming across as funny, but actually it's not. It's a form of passive aggressive, criticism, but you're just saying it in a way that is more flippant and cynical, and not seeing the best, not choosing to see the best all the time. You're identifying the worst in a situation and then kind of picking on it.
Yeah, and I think it's hard because we at times want to attack the person's character or something in an indirect way without even knowing it. And that's one thing that I really need to check my own self with, is like, can I give that person a very positive feedback even if I'm firing them? Can I give them a point where I'm not such like I don't want people to leave. Like, let's say, and this didn't happen, but let's say it's a creative person. I wouldn't want to fire them because they're just not at the level we want, and them go, man, I'm just going to go do something else. I'm not meant for this. I'm not meant to be creative, and diminish that fire inside of them, because there's a lot of people who still have that fire. They just, for some reason, they just don't grow as fast as other people, or they're just not at the level that you need to be for your business at that time.
Yeah.
And so, you want them to succeed in life, and you want them to move on to better things. And, there's been times where this is amazing. Like I've in my career fired people, years ago, and you look at them 10 years later, and all of a sudden they're running this big agency, and they're leading these big teams, and they're like, wait a second, was that the same person that worked for us? So people change and people grow and stuff.
great.
And
Also sometimes the things that are making it not click are because, like Bob said earlier, they're just not in the right spot.
Yeah.
And we've had those type of people where it's just like, this is just not working. Like, and the way it's coming out and not working is you're doing a bad job. You're not motivated. You don't care. Those are some of the maybe the byproducts of it not working. And maybe on the other side, we're starting to get frustrated that you don't care, or that doesn't seem like care. You're not doing like, but as soon as you shift it, obviously there's a passion in each person, right? And there's a purpose or many purposes in people. So helping them get to that, is how you, I think, get to those places where, the person at some point is going to be thriving.
And I think,
how do you get them there?
I think when you see people that you've let go on to be successful. I mean, in our previous episode with CJ Cassiata, he was a young up and coming, he worked for you. I don't know if he was an intern or you paid him, but
you said you fired him.
No, I didn't fire him.
No, I'm just kidding. No,
he didn't actually work for me. He worked for somebody on
I'm just saying he was young, and he went on, you'd forgotten about him, and now all of a sudden he shows up with this amazing book and he's getting recognition and building this whole like online world that he has, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But I think too, you look at those situations and it's like, I was just sitting here thinking, we're so different. We have such different skills. It's kind of like Michael Phelps. You used to go, well, he's an athlete. He's won lots of gold medals. So you're like, he must be good at everything. So you put him on the track against Usain Bolt and you go, Michael Phelps is not a good athlete.
Yeah.
Can't even run very fast. But then you put them both in a pool and you see him blow away Usain Bolt in the pool. And you're like, oh, okay. His skill set, he's an amazing athlete in the water in his skill set. And I think human beings are like that. It's an extreme example of being like, well, you're quote, an athlete, you're a designer, you're a creative, you're an agency person. Oh, you must not be that very good because you're not working out in the situation. But then you go and you see them. So just trying to always see people like that to say, everybody has got a unique gift and they're wired uniquely and they've got some amazing skills that if it doesn't work out, that's okay. Give them the freedom to fly and go find. I think also the other thing too that I was sitting here thinking about is being willing to always see the best in people, even when you're letting them go, and being willing to help them if you need be. Find the other thing. The thing that I realized at one point, I think sometimes as business owners, we kind of get a little bit of a God complex, meaning like, this is my family. I have to take care of them. And, they're looking for you for their livelihood. Your success is their success, meaning, hey, are we going to get paid next month? Yeah, we've got new clients. Great. Okay, I don't have to worry about it. There's this whole like thing I know that I fell into of being like, it's my responsibility. And you carry that weight. On some level, it's good and it's true, but it can be very dangerous, right? Like, if I let this people go, they just had a new baby. I'll give them another 6 months. Right?
Yeah.
Because I can't put them out on the street, right? Like I have never been, and you never will be, no matter how good you think you are, the provider and source of someone's livelihood. You're just not.
Yep.
On one level, yes, you write their paycheck, but at the end of the day, the universe is very big. The people are very skilled, and they will land somewhere and they will be taken care of. And so don't feel like, that complex of, I can be masked in kindness and goodness of, I need to just take care of this family because, or he's struggled before and, and it affects your business and you're really stealing from other people. Right?
I think that's where, I think that's where the leadership and like really seeking true wisdom comes in too. Yeah. And that's really hard because you've got to be really able to measure both sides of that. There's obviously the relational aspect of people depending on your business, and that's important. And then there's obviously the other side of it where you're not responsible for every single person. Mm-hmm. And people are also resilient and and they'll figure it out, and that is not your responsibility. It can't be. And sometimes hard things, well, we know hard things do help, people, and maybe they have to go through something to get better in certain areas. I don't know. That's not art, but those are all factors. And so that wisdom to say, like, am I like going too far with something, letting it hang around too long, or am I going too fast? Really has to be at play. And obviously, as your organization grows, it really has to be at play at all your leadership levels, because you're not doing all that yourself. And so you really have to, you have to be on a journey of leadership and seeking wisdom and mentors and those kind of things, because you really have there's a lot in the balance in even these little companies, right? Or big companies. And you have to teach it to your leaders as well to do the same thing. Another thing that we didn't really talk about, which is a big factor. In fact, I would say for me, it's one of the biggest factors, is if someone's not right, it actually starts affecting the rest of the team.
Yeah.
And not only that, but the rest of the team starts to lose respect for you if you let it go too long.
Yes.
And that is so much worse than any of the other issues, because you have the risk of potentially losing your entire team. We know how it is. Like, I never want, side behind the back conversations about me happening. Not because of my ego, but I that would be a failure on my part. If there are like, oh man, here he is again, or whatever. If that stuff's happening, that's bad. It's really toxic, and I would say it's a failure on the part of the leader.
Yeah.
And that stuff starts to happen when the wrong employee or the wrong team member is just one aspect of that. It could happen in other places, but the idea of not dealing with something, in a timely manner actually affects everybody else. And now you may disagree. I've had conversations with people where they've come to me and said, hey, this person is not right, or doesn't feel right. Like, I'm having a problem with this. And I've said, well, thank you. And here's my perspective on it. And we have a conversation, so it's not like yeah, I know, and then you don't do anything, or no, it's not, and you dismiss it. But you can have conversations about it. But if those things are happening and you are just avoiding issues, and this could be with firing someone, this could be with, I don't know, dealing with another potential issue. These happen all the time. We see this with a lot of companies that we end up working within. You lose your team. Your team starts to lose respect for you, the business, everything that you're doing. They actually start to get burnt out, because they're like, they don't care, and I don't care, and then why do I care so much? And that's, I think, the biggest risk.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. One thing we haven't really talked about on this too much is, if it really, really makes you uncomfortable, and you just find that your company is growing, you're getting more employees, and this is one piece that is not something that's good for you mentally, whatever it may be, is like putting that role on someone else, i.e., like, do you have a partner, or do you have an operations officer or an office manager that kind of manages that? What do you guys think about that? Like, removing yourself from that.
Well, I don't think I would remove yourself from the responsibility that you should take, because again, I think that disrespects you and loses your you become not a leader if you're not doing the things that you're supposed to do, whatever those may mean. But there are really great HR professionals, and there are outsourced HR companies which we've used, and they help put frames around that, and they help have conversations with people and that kind of thing, which is very, very helpful if you haven't dealt with that, if you don't have a format. I would definitely recommend those. And honestly, to that point, you should think through how you go through the process of letting somebody go. The conversations, those are all things that unfortunately can bite you too if you do them wrong, and you may not even do them wrong intentionally. So there's that kind of thing. I would highly recommend outsourced HR company to handle some of that stuff, or
just to get
somebody
that the legal things down of what you should say.
Well,
or shouldn't say.
There's sort of the protection aspect, the format, and then there's also just there's stuff that happens that they deal with It might just be questions about things. It's HR, human resources, the whole, taking all the administrative side of staff. There's a lot of work there, and something like that can really help, and it's not very expensive. It's a certain amount per month per head, and then there are also like outsourced, HR people who can just help there. But I do think that's. I would recommend that because I think it gives you a bit of a foundation to and it gives you a little coaching too if you haven't done this a lot before. Ultimately, like this sounds cheesy, but the truth is like, I think when you do this, you have to do it in love, and you have to do it like truly find, okay, anytime I do this, I'm like, how can I serve this person through this? Because serving people aren't always making them happy, and so how can I serve this person through this? So like, how can I give them encouragement, give them direction through this, even if they're not right here? That may not be easy to communicate, but that's kind of how I believe if you frame it that way. It's like, how can I do this lovingly, kindly, and also serve them as best possible? That means give them hard feedback if there is any hard feedback. Give them direction. Maybe if they're offered to give them coaching if they don't know where they're supposed to go next, on the side. I think those are things that go beyond business and kind of go into really helping people's lives.
Yeah, that's good, guys. This has been a good conversation. Any closing thoughts before we wrap it up?
Well, I think going back to hire slowly, I think we should have another podcast with how to hire properly so that you don't have to let somebody go down the road, or and really be able to vet your employees to really make sure that they're the right fit for your business and your team. So maybe that'll be a upcoming podcast in the future.
Yeah, that'd be good to talk
maybe
to
next time.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Sounds good.
All right, until next time.
Have fun.
Bye.
Bye.